Okay. So
Sorry,
with that
yeah.
raging confidence, I'll say hi. Welcome to Venture Bros, the Venture Brothers podcast, hosted by After the Hype. I am your host, as always, Bryan Dressel. With me is Nicholas Friedemann.
Hello?
Oh, I forgot. I had to do a nickname for Nick. Nicholas the Terrible.
Fair enough. I'll live with it.
Because he doesn't know how to count to 2. And Graham Mason.
Hello!
Graham doesn't get a nickname yet because he's missed too many episodes.
Hey. Just because you told me to watch the wrong episode. That's your bad.
Told you to watch, you didn't ask, whatever.
I totally asked! And then before the episode, I was like, hey, we're watching this episode, right? And you're like, no.
Yeah. I'll put that blame squarely on Bryan and I's shoulders because we didn't give you a no. I don't think we gave you anything. We just gave you radio silence, and you were like, all right, I guess I'll just go with this. This seems right to me.
I mean,
Is this the episode we're watching?
I mean, this is the one that's on the DVD, so obviously.
That I got from Bryan.
So he would obviously know.
Perfect. Yeah, we're off to a running start. So I'll say it usually at the end of the episode, but for this episode specifically, I want to call it out nice and early. Thanks to Reddit and all you wonderful folks at Reddit who have been listening to our episodes so far, we have a new researcher, and he's been doing a wonderful job. You can find him on Twitch. You can follow him at Brok Holliday. He's got a podcast as well that's on YouTube. And he has done a magnificent job and will be helping us out for the foreseeable future with this sort of research stuff. And who knows, maybe at some point he'll hop on an episode as well.
Indeed. Yeah, incredibly helpful.
So thank you, Brok. All of our accuracies are now him, and our inaccuracies are his fault. So find him and blame him.
It's true.
I did not tell him about that warning.
Thank you, and I'm sorry, Brok.
Okay, so today's episode we are talking about the Disneyland, right?
Sure.
Yes.
For your
That's what
accuracy,
it's called?
yes, go for it.
Incredible Mr. Brisby. This is an episode, came out, it's technically episode 4, written directed by Jackson Public, aired August 28th, 2004, and then there's a whole bunch of other notes that he took. Clearly, we like Brok. I'll stop promoting him now. So, do you guys remember watching this one? Is this one of your go-to episodes, one of your favorites, anything like that?
To be honest, not really.
Yeah. I was going to agree with Graham. I was like waiting for somebody else to say something. But
This is my favorite! No.
No, it's not bad. It's just not... It's one that I always forget kind of exists until it comes on, and then I'm like, oh, right, it's this episode.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's one of those episodes that when I come across it, I enjoy watching it. I never seek it out.
Right. And if to be truly honest, if it weren't for Molotov Cocktease, I would have totally forgot about this episode.
I just remember, the only thing I remember about this, and then we'll kind of break down what happens in the episode. The only thing I always remember about this one is the way they pronounce Orange County, because that's now how I pronounce Orange County. They really hit the orange hard because they're all wearing orange helmets. That always cracked me up, and now whenever I say Orange County, and except for right now, it's always Orange County. It's like,
Fair enough.
cool. That's the one great joke. That's not entirely true. There are some good episodes. There's good jokes in here, but Nick and I have broken down a few episodes in a row here, and Graham has not. So, Graham, do you want to break down what happens in this one?
Sure. Let's see.
Great start.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, you're doing great. You're doing so good.
So wait for it. So Dr. Venture gets invited to discuss a job offer at the funnest place on earth, or Brisbyland. But things aren't as nice as they seem. And Hank and Dean get kidnapped, and Brok gets knocked out. Basically takes an old flame of his to help him out and set things straight. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Riveting.
There you go, and that's it.
The major things that I you're kind of skipping over that I do like in this one is that it does set up like Busy Bee, who Dean is obsessed with throughout the majority of the series.
Yeah.
And then like Hank is kind of into him in this episode, and then never again.
Yeah, but that kind of fits Hank's character though. Like,
yeah,
you know, because they establish later on what Hank is obsessed with, which we'll get to in a later episode.
Yes. Beyond just his own company.
Yes.
Yes.
But there are some kind of cool things in here that I think are important, especially to the whole of Venture Brothers. This is the first time we really hear anything about David Bowie, who I don't think was supposed to be a character then, but he definitely becomes a character.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool because I remember being surprised at David Bowie's inclusion and then totally never remembering that he was mentioned in this episode.
Yeah.
Accurate. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
And then this is the first legitimate appearance of Molotov Cocktease, which Nick and I talked about last time. If we're going off the order that we are going off, makes absolutely no fucking sense that we've already kind of met her in Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Magic.
Yes. It is a weird inclusion that I don't follow.
No, a lot of this makes no sense to me whatsoever, and I'm a diehard fan of this show.
Yeah. I mean...
Oh, I should mention really quick before we go too much farther, if anybody hears crying in the background, I just had a baby son, and my wife is trying to calm him down. So there might be some tears in the background of future episodes, just so you know.
Fair enough.
Which that'll be Bryan, but the baby may also be Bryan.
Yes.
Yeah, we're 2 weeks into this. A lot of those tears are mine.
Fair enough. One other thing I would like to bring up also that is like a weird inclusion is this is the oh my god, I almost said introduction. That's
I mean, that's close to a word.
It's close. It's pretty close.
Yeah. It's kind of like a few words.
Yeah. Introduction of the idea that the boys are clones. Like in a roundabout sort of way. It's the first introduction of clones as a thing that Rusty has tangentially related to, which you eventually find out that he actually is very, very successful at.
Yeah.
Kind of like almost to a fault successful at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, totally. Like I it's another thing where like I remember him being dragged there for whatever purpose, but I didn't remember cloning, and I definitely like I'm not sure. Like I think it was a plan from the get-go that the boys were clones. Like I think that was always the thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was supposed to be a tease to that or not. Or if this is just supposed to get like cloning in the universe as like this is a thing that happens. Like whether or not we're supposed to be like guessing, oh, he does it and his sons are clones. I think that's too much of a leap right now. I think it's just more so like cloning is real and it's in this universe.
Because I think we've already basically accepted that he's a failure at most of the things in his life.
Yeah.
And so I think this is like, clones is obviously something that another thing that he's just terrible at, or would have no interest in, info on.
Well, I think this is the first time where we fully understand he's terrible at his job. Like we've gotten very good hints, like especially like in the first episode, where they kind of make fun of him, and like the doctor's making fun of him as he's trying to like bribe for pills with like a $5 bill. Like, you get that he's kind of a dullard, but this is the first time where like Brisby full on calls him out. Like, since you've taken over Venture Industries, it's been tanking. Like you were terrible at your job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of interesting, like especially because that never goes anywhere. Like he really just kind of fails his way to the top all the way up to season, like the most recent season.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things that he's just like, and I think that they do a good job of establishing also not just that he's a failure, but also that he's in high demand because he sits on all of his father's work. So like no matter how bad he is, he's still going to be somewhat relevant.
Well, yeah. I mean, he still owns the keys to the castle,
exactly,
so to speak. Like, but that's why, like later on, like when Manhauer comes like to investigate his or to like do a tour of his facilities, it's like, yeah, all this stuff's really interesting, but it's the same interesting stuff that I saw when your dad was running this place, and you've done nothing new.
Exactly.
And I like that this really feels like Brisby is calling him out on that and going, you need to take this job from me because without me, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
And
like you have been for your whole life.
Yeah. Like you
you're going to continue to fail. Yeah.
But I kind of like that. I like that they like each episode, I think it just gets a little bit more cemented that like oh, he's terrible. Like, he's just awful at everything. And like it even like going a little bit off our notes here, by using that sort of thing, it plays again more off of like Rusty's like father issues. Like, it really has things to go like words. It really plays into the whole like his father's envy. Like, he really just wants to be his dad because he wasn't called here because of his accomplishments. He was called here because of his dad's accomplishments, and that just plays more and more into his already like crushing ego.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which I think is just par for the course for his entire life. Like, whenever he gets any invitation, he just automatically thinks, oh, they're inviting me, Dr. Venture. And then when he gets there, he's like, yeah, so your dad. Like, every time. And he's just like, dang it. No, I'm the good guy, you know?
Yeah.
And he can never pull it off. Just because, yeah, he is a dullard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's also, Brisby brings it up again, he's also not a doctor. He has an honorary doctorate.
Exactly. I was just about to bring that up. It's like he's not just a dullard, he's also a liar. And it's like, ugh.
Oh, he could be president.
Oof, that is true.
Accurate.
He might be better. What else about this episode? Like, the problem with this one is, like, it has a lot of kind of cool, like, Easter eggs for the rest of the series, but it, on its own merits, it's just kind of meh, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like, there is one thing that I found really, really interesting about Rusty in this episode, which is, I think we've talked about how Rusty's a failure, Rusty's a dullard, Rusty's a liar, but I don't think that we've really gotten a chance to see Rusty in like a redeemable light until like he's arguing with Brisby after he's already captured, which would normally, I think, be, if you followed the pattern of Rusty so far, you'd be like, oh, he'd be cowering and he'd be kind of sad, but he actually just doesn't care. Like, he's oddly brave in that moment of just being like, what are you gonna do? Like,
but I don't think that's brave. I think that's just conditioning. He's been kidnapped his whole life.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I think he's just callous too.
Yeah.
Like, and then, like, as we were talking about with the clones and stuff like that, like, yeah, he just doesn't, if it's not relating to him, he does not care. If it's not going to benefit him in some extraordinary fashion, or even just monetarily, not interested.
Yeah.
And Brisby needs him, so he knows he's not going to get killed or, like, murdered or anything, because, like, without him, then you lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. There are things that, like, the things that I really enjoy in this episode. I really, just like almost every episode, I think in the beginning, I love Hank and Dean in it. Like, I really love them as brothers before they like start like separating as they get older. Like, but when like the first couple seasons, like I like that they're friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Like, I feel like they kind of get over that as they grow up, which makes sense how they're brought up and just kind of how their personalities are so starkly different.
Yeah.
But like, I just love the. Like, him having him pinned on the ground, spitting into his mouth. And you're lucky I had milk today. It's just so gross. But, like, my wife walked in when I was watching this. She's like, is that something boys actually do?
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, if you have older brothers, totally.
Yeah. Or if you have younger cousins. Or I've never done it. I actually haven't. Right? Sure?
I don't know. You tell us, Brian.
If you can't remember, that's just as much as not doing it.
Exactly.
It's the baby sleep depression. I can't remember anything right now.
That's fair. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that, well, I mean, we briefly touched on Molotov Cocktease, but do we want to kind of talk about like her real intro to the show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
Perfect.
Apparently you do.
Okay.
No,
Great.
come on.
I'll read my dissertation on the introduction of. No, I actually think that the intro. It's a weird episode because I think all of us are kind of lukewarm on it as a whole, but it does a lot for setting up the future of the show. Like, there's a lot of seeds planted in this. I think the problem is that the stuff surrounding those seeds just aren't the best. But with Molotov, it's like the first person to actually challenge Brok physically, which explains his attraction to her. And it's also
match him physically.
Exactly. Like, she's no slouch, and she can definitely hold her own in a fight against so far what seems to be a superhuman being. But But it's interesting because they kind of establish also, like, Brok is this ladies' man before that. So not only is she a match against him physically, she's a match kind of against him as just like a character, because she can't have sex, or at least she won't have sex.
Yeah. Which I think is
she
like
says
part
she
of...
can't, and she wears it like that chastity belt. But I think it's more of a won't situation.
Yes.
Because I think it's in her name, Cocktease. Like, that's how she uses it as power over men.
For sure.
It works fantastically.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Especially with Brok. I mean, I think
Oh, yeah.
if he were to, conquer or win, then it would be over. The attraction would be lessened. And so I think that, especially at this moment, as she's being introduced to us, I think, that's another one of her superpowers,
Exactly.
And I love the interchange they have when they're fighting. Like, you took my eye, you took my heart.
Oh, it's so good. And then they start making out, and then he's like, he sees the chastity belt, and he's like, still, and then he stabs the mattress, which is one of my favorite moments. I don't know why that has always stuck with me, but I love the stabbing of the mattress with sexual frustration. I don't know what that is, but it really has always resonated with me in some weird way.
See, personally, I like to follow up more when he's in the bathroom masturbating and she's telling him where the boys are, and he's like, 1 second! Do you know where the boys are?
Oh, it's so good.
But yeah, so I think we're kind of all on the same page. I think it's a watchable episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It has
some kind of fun stuff in there. I am a person who, we're not going to get into this, and go ahead, roast me if you want to. I hate pandas. I like the panda in this one. I think he's kind of entertaining.
Aww.
And he comes back at some point.
That's a win. That's a win for Venture.
Yeah, it's one panda so far that I'm entertained by. I like that they kind of use other shows to kind of base it off of. Like, it feels a little Johnny Quest like, a little like James Bond-esque. Like, there's really kind of fun things in there. Apparently, it was actually based on an episode of Batman the Animated Series, which is kind of cool. But overall, I think it's a decent episode that I will never really seek out.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, like we mentioned, I think there is a lot of, maybe not a lot, but there is, some world building here, and, talking and referencing future and past episodes and past events and stuff like that have happened. But the episode in itself is just kind of, all right.
And I feel like
there's some information that I'll use later.
Yeah, but to what you're saying, like, I feel like once you've seen the episode, you don't really ever need to see it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think once you've been introduced to it, that's it.
Yeah. All right, do we want to do favorite moments?
Yeah. Sure.
My favorite moment in the entire episode is the one that, other than the Orange County, that I always come back to, is when Dr. Venture is falling, and Brok just just keeps harpooning him to the wall, like, sleeve, and you just keep assuming he's fine, and then eventually they cut to him, and he's missed, and he's got him, like, through the ankle or the arm.
Oh, you think
he missed? Me down, I'm losing a lot of blood.
I think he did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he probably did. Yeah.
I think his sleeves ripped off at some point. He's like, all right, well, this is it. Yeah. It's his wrist or nothing.
You're probably right. That works.
Yeah, I was going to say this episode has some really good physical gags. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your favorite moment?
Me? Moi?
Sure. Toi.
Oh, parfait. My French is beaucoup good. It should probably be better, but
yeah,
you live in. Yeah, it definitely should.
Yeah. I'm just playing it down, guys. I speak.
Je suis désolé, mon français est terrible. I got that down, right?
Yep, you nailed it.
Did I? It's supposed to be said. I'm sorry, my French is terrible. I might be right.
Yeah, that was correct.
We'll never know.
Boom.
Oh, I mean, yes.
I've already discredited myself. I think my favorite moment is, so speaking of the physical comedy, the moment that got me to laugh the hardest was when the two henchmen for Brisby are standing outside this fence, and they're just having like a conversation about their bags, and he's like, oh, you got a new one, and they're just talking, and all of a sudden this pole comes out of nowhere and just goes through this guy's mouth, and he uses it as a pole vault, and it's like it was Brok, obviously, and it's just one of the best physical gags on the show. That's just like, it comes out of nowhere. You're like, what is this scene for? But it establishes a long running gag of like just henchmen as like a comedic device of just being like,
Yep.
it must be really boring, and that's pretty much the whole point of that scene. It's so good.
Yeah, especially because one of the guards is just being a total dick of like, oh yeah, you've got one of the new bags. Yeah. I got my bag in 1996. Which we've all met those people, and we're like, man, I wish I could just throw a pole vault through your throat right now, and it's a win.
Absolutely.
It's a win in that moment. No,
Oh, we didn't even mention the brainwashing Caps and the boys. That was also a really good sequence. Although it's a good sequence that I feel like they did nothing with that they should have.
Yeah.
So maybe it's good we didn't mention it.
yeah.
Graham, what's your favorite moment?
So yeah, I mean, we were talking about like physical gags and stuff like that, and then obviously one of my favorite moments is with Molotov and Brok and just their entry fight, and they're like really close together, and Brok is holding her shoulders, and then Molotov just like keeps repeatedly kicking him in the chin. And you're like,
oh
that's
yeah, the
it's
straight
so
up
impossible.
foot kick.
They're not moving at all. All you just see is just a foot going straight up into the frame. That's incredible.
Oof,
That's good stuff.
it is.
And you have to see it.
Okay, well, I think that brings this episode to a close. We can do a quick round of plugs, and then we'll say goodbye. As always, we are hosted on the After the Hype channel, so if you're already there, because that's how you're listening to this, be sure to check out our other show, After the Hype, where me and my wife Chewy and our friends John and Emily break down movies each and every week, and sometimes we do battles, and you can hear Graham on there fairly often, and if you can somehow magically go way back in time, you can find out it was just Nick and I back in the day.
Back in the day.
That's it for me. Nick, you have a video game you can actually plug now, right?
That is true. I for the last 2 years basically, I've been working on Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So
What?
that's coming out.
That's a big one.
It is. It's coming out in October. So I don't know. Get it if you want.
And then you can sit through the 20 minutes of credits at the end and try to find your name.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good luck. Yeah.
Graham, anything to plug?
Nothing. I am unpluggable.
Cool.
So
I know. I was like, are we gonna let that one go? I guess so.
I'll just go with creepy laugh.
Fair
you
enough.
did it.
And then be sure to check out our researcher Brok Holliday on Twitch and YouTube. And that's everything for today. We will see you next week with one of the best episodes of Venture Brothers.
Indeed.
So bye.
Bye.